Hello, story lovers. Tonight, we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from. And if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe. Share it with someone who loves a powerful love story. And tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. Asterisk the fluorescent lights of Sterling. Tech's 42nd floor cast harsh shadows across Emma Rodriguez's face as she balanced 12 specialty coffees against her hip. The cardboard tray trembled slightly in her grip, not from the weight, but from the familiar knot of anxiety that twisted in her stomach every time she entered these glass towers of corporate power. Conference Room 1-2A. The brass nameplate gleamed like a warning. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Emma could see the city sprawling below, all sharp angles and glittering ambition. 3 years ago, she had dreamed of being part of that world. Now she was just another invisible service worker. Her Stanford education buried beneath a delivery company polo and a worn baseball cap that never quite fit right. She knocked twice on the glass door before pushing it open. The smell hit her first. Expensive cologne, mixed with desperation and cold coffee. 12 people in $1,000 suits were clustered around a massive display screen, their voices sharp with panic. "Coffee delivery for room 1-2A, Emma announced to the room's tense silence. Nobody looked at her. They never did. At the head of the table stood Nathan Sterling, 32 years old, and worth more than Emma would see in 10 lifetimes. His dark hair was disheveled, his tie hanging loose like a noose he'd tried to escape. The Golden Boy CEO, who had built his empire on other people's broken dreams, now looked like he was living his own nightmare. 6 hours, a woman with steel-rimmed glasses was saying, her fingers flying across a laptop keyboard. 6 hours, and we're no closer to cracking this encryption. The entire client database is locked out. Rebecca Morgan, head of development. Emma recognized her from the company newsletters that littered the break rooms. The woman who never smiled, never bent, never broke. Until today. $15 million, Nathan's voice cracked like ice under pressure. If we don't solve this by morning, Henderson Industries walks, and they take our reputation with them. Emma set the coffee tray on the side table, her movements careful and quiet. She had learned long ago that silence was survival in these pristine corporate sanctuaries. But as she turned to leave, something on the main screen caught her eye. The code structure was elegant, almost beautiful in its complexity. But there was a flaw in the pattern, a discordant note that made her teeth ache. She found herself stepping closer, drawn by a puzzle she recognized from late nights in Stanford's computer lab. When the world had still held infinite possibility, the problem isn't in the encryption itself. The words escaped her lips before she could stop them. The room fell silent as if someone had cut the power. 12 pairs of eyes turned toward her, and Emma felt her cheeks burn under their collective stare. Nathan's eyebrows shot up. "Excuse me?" "I'm sorry." Emma clutched her empty delivery bag like armor. "I didn't mean to interrupt. No, wait." Nathan's voice carried a dangerous edge of curiosity. "What did you just say about the encryption?" Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. She could feel Rebecca's gaze dissecting her, searching for weaknesses. "It's just that the error pattern looks like a key rotation issue. The algorithm is trying to decrypt with yesterday's keys instead of today's." Rebecca stared at Emma like she'd grown a second head. "How could you possibly know that?" "I studied computer science before I had to drop out." The admission tasted like copper pennies in Emma's mouth. "I recognized the error signature." Nathan stepped closer. Emma caught a whiff of his cologne, cedar and ambition, and something darker underneath. "Show me. I really should go." "My supervisor will be angry if I'm late for the next delivery." "Forget your supervisor." Nathan's voice cut through her protests like a blade. "If you can solve this problem, I'll give you $50,000. Right here, right now." The room erupted in whispers. Rebecca's face flushed crimson. "Nathan, surely you don't think a coffee delivery girl can solve something our entire development team can't?" The familiar fire ignited in Emma's chest, the same rage that had carried her through. Stanford on scholarship, while rich kids dismissed her secondhand clothes in calloused hands. She set down her delivery bag with deliberate precision. You know what? I'll take that challenge. Emma approached the computer terminal like a gunslinger walking into a saloon. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she studied the screen. Seeing patterns within patterns, solutions hiding in plain sight. The code was complex, but she could read it like poetry written in a language only she remembered. May I? She asked Rebecca, who stepped aside with visible reluctance. Emma's fingers began to dance across the keys. She opened system diagnostics, traced authentication sequences, followed digital breadcrumbs through layers of security. Within minutes, she had identified 3 separate issues: key rotation error, timestamp mismatch, corrupted verification, hash. The room watched in stunned silence as she worked, her movements confident and precise. She reset the rotation cycle, synchronized timestamps, rebuilt the verification system from scratch with surgical efficiency. Try accessing the database now, she said, stepping back from the computer. Rebecca approached the keyboard like it might bite her. She typed the access command and hit enter. The screen flashed once, then displayed the client database in perfect working order. Nathan stared at the screen, then at Emma, his expression unreadable. What's your name? Emma Rodriguez. Emma Rodriguez. He repeated it slowly, like he was memorizing every syllable. Where did you study computer science? Stanford. 2.5 years before I had to leave. Why did you have to leave? Emma hesitated. Personal stories were dangerous currency in corporate boardrooms, but something in Nathan's eyes made her want to trust him, and that terrified her more than anything. My parents died in a car accident when I was 21. My younger brother Diego was only 13. Someone had to take care of him. Nathan nodded slowly, and Emma saw something flicker across his face. Recognition, maybe. Or hunger. Emma, he said, his voice soft as velvet over steel. I have a proposition for you. And in that moment, as Emma stood surrounded by expensive suits and dangerous ambitions, she realized she had just stepped into a game whose rules she didn't understand. A game where the stakes were higher than money, and the price of winning might be her soul. Nathan Sterling was looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. Emma had the sudden, terrifying suspicion that she was about to find out what that question was. Nathan's office occupied the entire corner of the 45th floor. Its floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a panoramic view of the city that never slept. Emma stood in the center of the vast space, feeling like a chess piece on a board she couldn't see. $50,000. Nathan set the check on his mahogany desk, the paper stark white against the dark wood. As promised, Emma stared at the numbers, more money than she'd seen in 3 years of coffee deliveries and double shifts. Enough to pay off Diego's medical bills from his asthma attacks. Enough to maybe finally breathe. And the job offer? She asked, her voice steadier than she felt. Nathan leaned against his desk, arms crossed. In the afternoon light, his features were sharp as carved stone, beautiful in the way that dangerous things often were. Senior Systems Analyst. 6-month trial period. Full benefits, competitive salary. What's the catch? A smile ghosted across his lips. Smart. I like that. He moved to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The catch is that I'm not offering you this job because I'm charitable. Emma, I'm offering it because I need you. Need me for what? Nathan was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the urban sprawl below. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of confession. Do you know what Sterling Tech really does? Corporate security solutions. Digital infrastructure. That's what the website says. The website lies. Nathan turned to face her, and Emma saw something raw and desperate in his expression. We're mercenaries, Emma. Digital mercenaries. Companies hire us to break into their competitors' systems, steal trade secrets, destroy evidence. We're corporate warfare specialists. The air in the room seemed too thin. Emma felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring down into an abyss. That's illegal. Technically, it's a gray area. We never directly hack anyone. We just provide our clients with the tools and vulnerabilities they need to do it themselves. Nathan's laugh was bitter as winter wind. Legal plausible deniability. Then why are you telling me this? Nathan stepped closer, close enough that Emma could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Because Henderson Industries isn't just a client. They're planning something big, something that could crash the entire financial sector. And they want Sterling Tech to give them the keys. Emma's mouth went dry. What kind of something? A coordinated attack on 7 major banks. Simultaneously, they want to trigger a market collapse and buy up the pieces for pennies on the TSE. Nathan's voice was barely above a whisper. Millions of people would lose everything. Retirement funds, mortgages, college savings. Gone. Jesus Christ. Emma sank into one of Nathan's leather chairs, her legs suddenly unsteady. Why are you telling me this? Why not go to the FBI? Nathan laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because I'm already in too deep. My company, my employees, my own freedom. It's all hanging by a thread. Henderson owns me, Emma. They own Sterling Tech. Then why fight them? Nathan was quiet for so long that Emma thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw with old pain. Because 5 years ago, I had a little sister, Sarah. She was 17. Brilliant. Wanted to be a teacher. He paused, his hands clenching into fists. Henderson's last market manipulation destroyed my family's investment firm. Sarah couldn't afford college. She took out loans, got in over her head, and when the pressure became too much, Emma's heart stopped. Nathan. She jumped off the Aurora Bridge on a Tuesday morning in October. Left a note apologizing for being such a financial burden. Nathan's voice cracked like breaking glass. Henderson Industries killed my sister as surely as if they'd pushed her off that bridge themselves. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. She understood now, the hunger in his gaze, the desperation beneath his polished exterior. Nathan Sterling wasn't just a corrupt CEO. He was a man consumed by the need for revenge. What do you want from me? She asked quietly. Nathan knelt beside her chair, his eyes intense and searching. Help me bring them down. You have skills my team doesn't. You see patterns they miss. Together, we could plant evidence of their planned attack, expose them before they can execute it. That's still illegal. So is what they're planning. Nathan's hand covered hers, warm and strong. Emma, I'm not asking you to be a hero. I'm asking you to be human. To help me save the millions of people who will suffer if Henderson succeeds. Emma looked down at their joined hands. At the check on the desk, at the man whose pain mirrored her own. She thought about Diego, about the medical bills and the rent and the future that seemed forever out of reach. She thought about Sarah Sterling, 17 and brilliant and dead because of corporate greed. If I do this, she said slowly, I'm not doing it for revenge. I'm doing it to protect innocent people. Nathan's smile was beautiful and terrible. Whatever your reasons, I'll take them. Emma picked up the check, her decision crystallizing like ice in her veins. What's the first step? Tomorrow night, Henderson is hosting a charity gala downtown. All their top executives will be there, celebrating their philanthropic image while planning financial genocide. We're going to crash their party. Nathan stood, straightening his tie with practiced precision. You'll be my date. A brilliant systems analyst I'm courting for a major contract. No one will suspect a thing. Emma felt a flutter of something dangerous in her chest. Your date? Just for show. But Nathan's eyes suggested otherwise, dark and full of promises that made Emma's breath catch. Can you handle that? Emma stood as well, her chin lifting with determination. Mr. Sterling, you have no idea what I can handle. As she turned to leave, Nathan caught her wrist gently. Emma, once we start this, there's no going back. Are you sure? Emma looked at him, this beautiful broken man who carried his sister's ghost in his eyes. She thought about all the Sarah Sterlings in the world. All the innocent people who would suffer for Henderson's greed, I'm sure. But as Emma walked toward the elevator, the $50,000 check burning in her pocket. She couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan Sterling had just made her an offer she couldn't refuse, and that terrified her more than anything Henderson Industries could do. The black dress Nathan had sent fit Emma like liquid silk. Hugging curves she'd forgotten she had beneath delivery uniforms in exhaustion, she stared at her reflection in the hotel suite's full-length mirror, barely recognizing the woman staring back. Diamond earrings caught the light like captured stars, and her dark hair fell in waves over bare shoulders. "You look stunning." Emma turned to find Nathan in the doorway, devastating in his black tuxedo. The formal wear transformed him from corporate predator to something even more dangerous. A man who looked like he could steal hearts as easily as he broke security systems. "This feels wrong," Emma said, smoothing the dress's fabric with nervous fingers. "I don't belong at a place like this." Nathan stepped closer, his presence filling the space between them. "You belong anywhere you choose to be, Emma Rodriguez." He offered her his arm. "Shall we go steal some secrets?" The Henderson Industries charity gala was being held at the Grand Metropolitan, the city's most exclusive hotel. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow light across marble floors, and champagne flowed like water among the city's elite. Emma felt like an imposter walking through the crowd of politicians, CEOs, and socialites who moved with the confidence of people who had never known hunger or desperation. "Remember?" Nathan murmured in her ear as they navigated the crowd. "We're here to get close to Marcus Henderson. He'll have his phone with him, and when he sets it down, he'll have maybe 30 seconds to install the monitoring software." Emma nodded, her heart hammering against her ribs. The tiny device in her clutch felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Nathan Sterling. The voice cut through the ambient conversation like a blade. They turned to find Marcus Henderson himself approaching, a man in his 60s with silver hair and eyes like winter ice. Everything about him screamed power and cruelty, from his perfect posture to the way other guests stepped aside to let him pass. "Marcus?" Nathan's smile was charming and completely false. "Thank you for the invitation. I was surprised you accepted, given our recent ... disagreements." Henderson's gaze slid to Emma, assessing her like merchandise. "And who is this lovely creature?" "Emma Rodriguez, my new senior systems analyst." Nathan's hand found the small of Emma's back, possessive and warm. "Emma, Marcus Henderson, CEO of Henderson Industries." Emma extended her hand, fighting to keep her expression neutral as Henderson lifted it to his lips. His skin was cold and dry, reptilian, charming, and brilliant, I'm told. Nathan has quite the eye for talent. Henderson's smile never reached his eyes. "I do hope we'll be working together soon." "I'm looking forward to it," Emma lied smoothly. As Henderson moved away to greet other guests, Nathan leaned close to Emma's ear. "He'll be giving a speech in 20 minutes. That's our window." The next hour passed in a blur of meaningless conversation and champagne that tasted like liquid regret. Emma watched Henderson work the room, charming donors while planning their financial destruction. The casual evil of it made her stomach turn. When Henderson finally took the stage to deliver his speech about charitable giving and corporate responsibility, Emma felt sick. Here was a man who spoke eloquently about helping the less fortunate while planning to destroy millions of lives. "Corporate social responsibility isn't just good business," Henderson was saying, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "It's our moral obligation to lift up those who cannot lift themselves." Nathan's jaw tightened beside her. Emma could feel the rage radiating from him in waves. Henderson set his phone on the podium as he gestured to the crowd. Emma's pulse quickened. This was it. She moved through the crowd like smoke, invisible in the way she'd learned during 3 years of delivery work. Nobody looked twice at a woman in a black dress, especially not when Marcus Henderson was holding court on stage. Emma reached the podium just as Henderson launched into a story about funding scholarships for underprivileged children. The irony was suffocating. Her fingers closed around his phone, and she quickly attached the small device Nathan had given her. 30 seconds to upload the monitoring software. 25. 2015. "Excuse me." Emma's blood froze. A security guard stood behind her, his expression suspicious. I was just looking for the ladies' room, Emma said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It's through those doors, the guard said, but his eyes never left her face. 10 seconds. 5. Emma smiled and walked away, her legs steady despite feeling like they might collapse. Behind her, Henderson's voice continued to fill the air with beautiful lies. Did you get it? Nathan asked when she found him by the bar. Emma nodded, unable to trust her voice. Nathan's smile was fierce with satisfaction. Then let's get out of here before what, Nathan? They turned to find Rebecca Morgan standing behind them, no longer the frazzled developer from the conference room. Her steel-rimmed glasses were gone, her hair was different, and she moved with the cold confidence of a predator. Rebecca? Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Actually, it's Agent Morgan, FBI Cybercrime Division. Rebecca's smile was sharp as broken glass. And you two are under arrest. The world tilted sideways. Emma felt Nathan's hand tighten on her arm, felt the blood drain from her face. Surprised? Rebecca continued. We've been investigating Sterling Tech for months. Industrial espionage, corporate sabotage, conspiracy to commit cyber terrorism. You've been very helpful. Thank you. You don't understand, Nathan said desperately. Henderson is planning to crash the financial sector. We were trying to stop them. Rebecca laughed, cold and brittle. Henderson Industries has been cooperating with our investigation from the beginning. They're the ones who came to us when they suspected Sterling Tech of planning to frame them for cyber terrorism. Emma's world shattered like glass. No, that's not possible, isn't it? Rebecca tilted her head. Think about it, Emma. A man approaches a vulnerable woman with a sob story about his dead sister, offers her money and romance, convinces her to help him commit federal crimes. Classic manipulation. Emma looked at Nathan, searching his face for denial, for truth, for anything that would make this nightmare stop. But she saw only guilt and desperation in his eyes. Nathan? Her voice broke on his name. Emma? I can explain, but Emma was already backing away, the terrible truth crashing over her like a wave. There had been no dead sister, no noble cause, no revenge plot against corporate monsters. Nathan Sterling had used her, manipulated her, turned her into a criminal for reasons she couldn't even comprehend, and she had fallen for it completely. Emma, please. Nathan reached for her, but she jerked away from his touch. Don't. The word came out like a blade. Don't you dare touch me. As FBI agents moved through the crowd like sharks, Emma realized that the real betrayal wasn't Nathan's lies. It was that, despite everything, despite the handcuffs clicking around her wrists and the future crumbling before her eyes, part of her still wanted to believe him. And that was the most dangerous lie of all. The federal holding cells smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Emma sat on the narrow bench, still wearing the black dress that now felt like a costume from someone else's life. 3 days had passed since the gala. 3 days of interrogations and lawyers and the slow, crushing realization that her future had been torn away in a single night. The door opened with a metallic clang. Nathan Sterling walked in, no longer the polished CEO, but a man hollowed out by guilt and something deeper. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his perfect hair disheveled, and there were dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hard truths. You have 5 minutes, the guard said before closing the door behind him. Emma didn't look up. Come to gloat? Come to tell you the truth. Nathan sat beside her on the bench, close enough that she could smell his cologne. Still cedar and ambition, but now mixed with something that might have been regret. I've heard enough of your truth to last a lifetime, Sarah. It was real. The words hit Emma like a physical blow. She finally looked at him, searching his face for lies. My little sister. 17 years old, wanted to be a teacher? She died exactly the way I told you. Nathan's voice was raw, stripped of all pretense. But she didn't die because of Henderson Industries. Emma felt something cold settle in her stomach. Then why? Because of me. Nathan's laugh was bitter as poison. I was young, ambitious, desperate to make my mark. I built Sterling Tech by stealing from competitors, by selling corporate secrets, by destroying anyone who got in my way. And when it all came crashing down, when the authorities started closing in, Sarah couldn't handle the shame. Emma's breath caught. Nathan. She left a note. Said she couldn't live with what our family name had become. Nathan's hands clenched into fists. The bridge, the Tuesday morning, the apology for being a burden, all of it real. Except the part about Henderson being responsible, then why frame them? Nathan was quiet for a long moment, staring at his hands. Because Rebecca Morgan is my ex-wife. The revelation hit Emma like a sledgehammer. What? We were married for 2 years before she found out what Sterling Tech really did? She was FBI even then, working cybercrimes. When she discovered I was the target of her investigation, ... double quotes, Nathan shook his head. She felt betrayed, used, destroyed by someone she loved. Emma's world shifted again, pieces falling into new and terrible patterns. She wanted revenge. She wanted justice. There's a difference. Nathan finally looked at Emma, his eyes dark with pain. The plan was simple. Use Henderson Industries as bait. Get me to commit crimes on camera. Take down Sterling Tech permanently. Clean and legal. But you needed someone to actually commit the crimes. Someone expendable. Emma's voice was steady. But inside she was screaming. I needed someone skilled enough to pull it off, but innocent enough that Rebecca would believe I'd manipulated them. Nathan's confession came out like blood from a wound. When you walked into that conference room and solved our encryption problem, I knew you were perfect. Emma stood abruptly, pacing to the far wall of the cell. So everything was a lie. The job offer, the speech about saving innocent people, the way you looked at me. Not everything. Emma spun to face him. Don't. The way I looked at you was real. Emma, what I felt when you solved that problem, when you stood up to Rebecca, when you agreed to help me. Nathan stood as well, moving toward her. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with you. Love? Emma's laugh was sharp as breaking glass. You destroyed my life, I know. Nathan stopped just out of reach, his hands raised in surrender. I know, and I hate myself for it. But Emma, you have to understand there's still time to fix this. What are you talking about? Nathan pulled a small device from his pocket, holding it up so Emma could see. A recording device. Everything Rebecca said at the gala, every detail of her plan to frame Henderson Industries. It's all here. Emma stared at the device, not daring to hope. Why are you showing me this? Because Rebecca made one mistake. She assumed I'd chosen you randomly, that you were just a convenient tool. She never considered that I might actually care about. You enough to double-cross her? You recorded your own? Ex-wife. I recorded a federal agent fabricating evidence and framing innocent people for crimes they didn't commit. Nathan's voice hardened. Henderson Industries may be ruthless, but they're not planning to crash the financial sector. Rebecca made that up to justify her vendetta against me. Emma felt dizzy, the ground shifting beneath her feet once again. So Henderson really is innocent? As innocent as corporate raiders can be. Nathan's smile was grim. But yes, innocent of cyber-terrorism. Emma sank back onto the bench, overwhelmed. Why are you telling me this? Why give me the evidence? Nathan sat beside her again, but this time he kept his distance. Because you're going to testify against me. Tell them everything I did, how I manipulated you, how I used your financial desperation and your guilt about your brother to make you commit federal crimes. Nathan, no. Yes. His voice was firm, resolved. You'll walk away from this, Emma. Clean record, immunity deal, probably a reward from the FBI for exposing corruption. You can go back to Diego, maybe even go back to school. Emma looked at him, this beautiful, broken man who had destroyed her life and was now trying to save it. What about you? I'll go to prison. 20 years, maybe more. But Emma, I need you to know something. Nathan turned to face her fully, his eyes intense and searching. When I told you I loved you, that wasn't part of the plan. That wasn't manipulation or strategy or revenge. That was just a man falling in love with a woman who was everything he wasn't. brilliant, honest, brave enough to do the right thing even when it cost her everything. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm making it as easy as I can. Nathan stood, moving toward the door. The guard will be back in 60 seconds. When he asks if you'll cooperate with the FBI's investigation, say yes. Tell them about this conversation, about the recording device, about everything. They'll make you a deal, and you'll take it. Nathan, wait. Emma stood as well, her heart breaking with every word. What if I don't want you to go to prison? What if I want to find another way? Nathan's smile was sad and beautiful and final. Then you'd be making the same mistake I made, choosing love over justice. And Emma, you're too good a person to make that mistake. The door opened. The guard stepped inside. Time's up. Nathan walked toward the door, then stopped without turning around. Emma, for what it's worth, these 3 days with you were the only honest days I've lived in 10 years. And then he was gone, leaving Emma alone with her shattered heart and a choice that would define the rest of her life. Justice or love. The right thing or the easy thing. Emma Rodriguez, or the woman Nathan Sterling, had made her believe she could be. Outside the cell, she could hear voices, footsteps, the machinery of justice grinding forward, and in her heart, she could hear Nathan Sterling walking away from her forever. 6 months later, Emma stood in the visitor's room of FCI Sheridan. Her reflection fractured in the bulletproof glass that separated her from the man who had changed everything. Nathan looked smaller in his orange jumpsuit, his sharp edges softened by confinement and something that might have been peace. You testified against Rebecca, he said, his voice distorted by the phone connection. Emma nodded. Conspiracy, evidence fabrication, abuse of federal authority. She got 15 years. She paused, studying his face. You could have gotten immunity if you'd cooperated earlier. Why didn't you? Nathan's smile was soft, different from the predatory grin she remembered from Sterling Tech's glass towers. Because some scenes require punishment, Emma, not legal punishment, but real punishment. The kind that comes from living with what you've done. Henderson Industries is being investigated now. Turns out they were guilty of plenty, just not what Rebecca accused them of. Emma shifted in the uncomfortable plastic chair. Tax evasion, environmental violations, worker safety violations. They're finally paying for their crimes. Good. Nathan leaned forward slightly. And Diego? Emma's face lit up, the first genuine smile Nathan had seen from her in months. Full scholarship to MIT, turns out the FBI reward money, and the settlement from Sterling Tech's. Dissolution was enough to pay for medical school too, if he wants it. And you? Accepted to Stanford's graduate program, computer science, specializing in cybersecurity ethics. Emma's laugh held no bitterness, only a kind of tired hope. Funny how things work out. They sat in silence for a moment. To people who had loved each other across a chasm of lies and betrayal, now separated by glass and justice and the weight of choices made. I have something for you, Emma said, pulling a small envelope from her purse. Nathan frowned. Emma, you know I can't. It's legal. Just read it. Nathan opened the envelope with careful fingers, his expression changing as he scanned the document inside. This is a visiting schedule. Every other Sunday for the next 8 years. If you want, Emma's voice was steady, but Nathan could see the vulnerability in her eyes. I'm not saying I forgive you. I'm not saying what you did was right. But Nathan, everyone deserves someone who believes they can be redeemed. Nathan stared at the paper, his hands trembling slightly. Why? Because 3 days ago, I got a letter from a woman named Sarah Henderson, Marcus Henderson's daughter. Emma watched as Nathan's eyes widened. She said her father had a heart attack last month. Before he died, he confessed to some things, bad things. Things that destroyed families, including yours. Nathan's breath caught. Emma, your sister's death wasn't your fault, Nathan. Sarah Sterling died because Marcus Henderson's financial manipulations destroyed your family's investment firm. You were right about that part. Emma's voice was gentle, careful. You were a criminal, yes? But you weren't a murderer. Tears tracked down Nathan's cheeks. The first real emotion Emma had seen from him since the night they were arrested. I don't know how to live with that. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One chance at a time to be better than you were. Emma pressed her hand against the glass. And Nathan mirrored the gesture from his side. That's all any of us can do. 8 years is a long time, Emma. I'll be here, she said simply. Not because I have to be. Not because you manipulated me, or because I'm too naive to see clearly, but because I choose to be. Nathan closed his eyes, leaning his forehead against the glass barrier between them. I love you, I know. Emma's voice was soft as prayer. And maybe in 8 years, when you've served your time and made whatever amends you can make, maybe I'll be able to say it back, and if you can't, Emma stood, gathering her purse and her coat and her carefully reconstructed life. Then you'll know that at least one person believed you were worth saving, even when you couldn't save yourself. As Emma walked toward the exit, Nathan called after her. Emma, what if I'm not worth saving? She turned back to him, this broken man who had destroyed her life, and somehow, impossibly, helped her build a better one from the pieces. Nathan Sterling, she said, everyone is worth saving. The question is whether you're brave enough to let someone try. She left him there, with his tears and his orange jumpsuit and his visiting schedule. Surrounded by concrete and steel and the possibility of redemption, 8 years stretched ahead of them like an unwritten story, full of possibilities neither could yet imagine. Outside the prison, Emma tilted her face toward the autumn sun and breathed deeply. The air tasted of freedom and forgiveness and second chances. In her pocket, her phone buzzed with a text from Diego, got into advanced algorithms class. Thanks for believing in me, sis. Emma smiled, thinking about belief and redemption and the strange, twisted path that had led her from delivering coffee to delivering justice. She had been broken by Nathan Sterling's lies, but she had also been made stronger by choosing truth over vengeance, hope over hatred. The world was full of Marcus Hendersons and corrupt agents, and men who used love as a weapon. But it was also full of Diego Rodriguez's and Sarah Sterling's, and second chances that arrived disguised as disaster. Emma Rodriguez walked back into her life, carrying the weight of forgiveness and the promise of Sunday visits. Behind her, through bulletproof glass and concrete walls, Nathan Sterling sat alone with his choices and his chance to become someone worthy of the grace she had offered. Some love stories ended with kisses and wedding bells. Others ended with visiting schedules and the long, hard work of becoming better people. Emma thought this might be the more honest kind of love story, even if it was also the more difficult one. 8 years from now, they would find out if redemption was real, if people could truly change, if love could survive the terrible weight of truth. Until then, they had time. They had choice. They had the possibility that broken things could be made whole. Not by pretending the breaks had never happened, but by learning to find beauty in the scars. The end.